Thank you for coming to today's presentation from GNet Group entitled Digital Marketing Dashboard Framework. Without further delay, I'm pleased to hand the floor over to your presenter, Anand Pandya from GNet Group. Take it away.
Thank you, Marcy. Again, my name is Anand Pandya. I'm the BI Services Manager in our South Central District here at GNet Group. You can see my contact information here on screen if you have anything. Questions throughout the presentation, feel free to use the live meeting Q&A panel, or you can shoot me an email, as well as follow us along on Twitter and shoot any messages that way as well. Brief outline of what we'll be covering today. I want to give a quick introduction to GNet Group, who we are, what we do, give a quick overview of some of the objectives that we will be covering in talking about the Digital Marketing Dashboard Framework, mainly really talking about today's modern digital era and some of the challenges that it presents from a data collection, aggregation, and consumption perspective. We're going to get a little bit into our Digital Marketing Dashboard Framework solution. I want to go into a real-life implementation that we did at Polaris Industries, show you a quick demo of the solution, and then really open the floor to Q&A. So a little bit about GNet Group. GNet Group's a managed gold-certified Microsoft partner focused on empowering data-driven strategies. Really, the way we see it, data is the lifeblood of any company that's in operation today. And if you can't really make sense of the data that your business processes and your systems create, then it makes life a little bit harder to operate. There are a history of about 150 successful Microsoft BI and Microsoft SharePoint projects across multiple verticals. We've helped several different companies turn their data from just kind of mere bits, bytes, zeros, and ones to actionable information and insight. GNet Group has been leveraged by Microsoft's Global Center of Excellence, and we're recognized as a thought leader and a leading provider for Microsoft BI and SharePoint solutions. We're headquartered in St. Paul, Minnesota, and we have local offices in Dallas, Fort Worth. Quick logo slide just to lay out some of the different customers we've shown. As we mentioned, it's across different industries. We've had several different projects. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to highlight the work we've done at Polaris with the Digital Marketing Dashboard Framework. Our core range of services really stretches across business intelligence and SharePoint. All of our projects begin at a strategic level, where we help our customers envision how they can better monitor and achieve the goals and objectives that they've set. We help establish data and content governance to make sure things get started on the right foot, like to ensure customer solutions are used to the fullest rather than just kind of being built and proverbially collecting dust on the shelf. We offer 3 pre-built accelerator solution sets that work as a customizable core to fit your business in a accelerated sense. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Digital Marketing Dashboard Framework today, so I'm going to gloss over that one in this slide. Second piece would be our planning and budgeting and forecasting solution. That is a full-blown end-to-end planning and budgeting application that's been built across SharePoint, Microsoft Office, and Microsoft SQL Server. We have a published case study on Microsoft's website that we've done for the Wilder Foundation in Minnesota, and that's currently available. You can shoot us an email if you have any questions about that. And the third solution set we have is our Healthcare Intelligence Framework that helps healthcare providers really balance quality and cost of care by providing Six Sigma analytics to gauge change and predictive analytics to really get a better feel for resource optimization. I want to take a little bit of a break here, get a feel for who's in our audience. So if you could just take the time and click and let us know what kind of role you play in your organization. Are you an IT professional, a marketing professional, finance professional, an executive or decision maker, or do you play a different role? I'll give you a little bit of time. All right, looks like we have a pretty good mix of IT and marketing, so that's great. So we talked about the Digital Marketing Dashboard Framework and what we really want to accomplish in today's webcast. And the objectives we're really dealing with are the mountains of marketing data that marketing departments have to sift through to really get a feel for how effective campaigns are going. Almost 10 out of 10 times we're dealing with external data sources and external silos of marketing activities that are really causing a lot of fragments of data. different systems and trying to integrate those things. And it's very hard for marketing departments to merge all this information and consolidate all this information to really get conclusive insights that let them get a better idea of how to put their marketing dollars to better use. So things like channel optimization and consumer engagement, the effectiveness of the campaigns that your organization is running, and ultimately how does that relate to conversion and pipeline? How are we making money? How are we getting more customers? How are we getting more people in? We're also going to touch on the capabilities of the Microsoft's 2010 Business Intelligence Stack. So that would be the SQL Server 2008 R2 backside with ETL via integration services, storage, and the SQL Server database engine, OLAP engines and cubes in analysis services, presented through SharePoint dashboards, self-service visual analytics, the capability to integrate geospatial data and mapping, and a tool called Pivot Viewer for really image-based correlative analysis. So the digital era. Think about your daily routine. When you wake up in the morning, do you just kind of get up and start going, or is the first thing you do kind of roll over, grab your cell phone, check the news, check emails, as you're going throughout the day? Are you checking websites? Are you checking little ads that are popping up on phone apps that you're using? Are you, first thing when you get to work, when you open your computer, are you sifting through more emails? Are you going to CNN.com or Wall Street Journal, going to read articles, and you see all the internet ads going on? And how do you evaluate those products and services via channels? How do you ultimately use that those digital channels to influence the decisions that you make when it comes to purchases and buys? So, from this end, there's Facebook, there's your laptop, there's mobile phones, there's, iPads and slates, Twitter, text messaging, all these different things that now impact how we consume information. Now think about it from the organization side. As an organization, I can send emails, I can position different banners on websites, social media, paid search. All these things are driving traffic to my website. This is really all the spend that I have as a marketing department. I'm spending trying to get to those channels that people are interacting with on a day-to-day, minute-to-minute basis. How do I gauge where those people are coming from? What are they buying? And ultimately, how is it turning into the returns and dollars that are coming into my organization? How do I make sense of all this today? How many experiences does it take to convert? We're talking about the more traditional sense. It was a very straight line approach. It was a defined path. There were linear stages. It was a direct conversation. It was phone calls. It was trade shows. It was I have a booth. I have a person-to-person interaction. I know when I'm talking to these people. I know what the stages are in that path for conversion. I know when I make the influence. I know those handshakes. I know those conversations. I can feel those things out. In a traditional sense, it's very textbook. But when we get into the digital age, the game changes. Now, you're talking about multiple channels, talking about multiple paths to conversion. You're talking about the human element, the behavioral elements of marketing. And it's the attribution model. So it's the idea that no two visitors are alike. So I can see one ad, click on it, go to your site, and not see anything I really like and just leave. Another person might not actually click to your website until they've seen 15 ads, gotten an email, maybe saw a viral video on YouTube, and then finally that person gets to your website and they convert and make a purchase. There's no way to gauge what's the influence, what's the conversion. And if you try and focus in on a single channel, ultimately in the digital age it becomes myopic, becomes misleading. You can't make a single funnel that represents your entire digital marketing channel and endeavor because there's so many different channels and there's so many different ways to look at it. Combining that data together is really the only way to get a complete online marketing picture. So before we get into that, I want to take a quick step back and ask you, the audience, what kind of digital marketing your organization is using. From an on-site analytics perspective, you use Web Trends, Google Analytics, Omniture, your IIS logs, on your web server? Do you use email marketing to reach out to customers? So things like Exact Target, Constant Contact, or Yes Mail. Do you use bought media? So do you use Microsoft Atlas? Do you use DoubleClick? Or all of the above / some of the above. So a lot of you might be using a mix of these. So if you use more than one of these, go ahead and select all of the above. That really, all of the above comes some of the above. What you're using to really gauge how do I reach customers. I want to give you a moment for that. Okay, seems like a majority of you either use a mix of these things, or if there is a focus, it's on on-site analytics. So that's great. So if we're taking a look at how people measure effectiveness today, we talked about how you've got all these different external pieces that come to play. So you've got your web analytics, you've got online ads, you've got email marketing, you've got all these different digital channels that are being used, and they all have their own separate data centers, and they may produce reports for you, and they may produce data extracts, but they're all single channel pieces. Ultimately, they're getting exported to Excel. And when you want to see them mixed with your internal systems to really gauge that conversion, gauge that pipeline and funnel, you can't just run a single report. You have to export data from your CRM, from your ERP, from your online sales system, from other internal systems. So ultimately, when you're trying to ask questions, you get this mixture and mash of spreadsheets going back and forth between the analysts, between the managers. As questions are being asked for analysis to be done, it's choppy, it's broken, it's very manual effort. And then when questions start being asked, how are we performing against targets? So my analyst team has provided all these reports for me, and I start asking questions. If those answers aren't readily apparent, I have to go right back to that Excel process to return more reports. What does our pipeline and funnel look like? Well, which channel are we talking about? Are we talking about a traditional channel? Because those are easy to report. If we're talking about a digital channel, well, each one of those channels can be different. They can be fat pyramids, thin pyramids, inverted pyramids. How does it work? What's the correlation and activity with revenue? So across all these channels, when people are getting to our website, how does that ultimately turn into conversions? That's great that we have this fantastic website, but is anybody doing anything on it? So as I'm asking all these different questions, what's the trend? What's it been like? What campaigns are working? What channels are working? What's driving revenue? Ultimately, I'm driving towards a single question of how effective is our marketing campaigns, or are our marketing campaigns? And right now, it's very hard for organizations to try and consolidate all these different silos of Excel data and produce those analytics quickly enough to answer that question. It does me no good to know how a campaign did well after the fact. I need to be aggressive. I need to be agile enough to make the right changes to invest my marketing dollars the right way. So where does DMDF come in? We talked about this digital marketing framework, our product that is the digital marketing dashboard framework. DMDF combines data from web analytics software, online ads, so bought media, email marketing, and other solutions, and combines that with internal systems via business intelligence best practices. So now you can see immediately, rather than depending on a bunch of Excel exports, we can automate the pull of information via APIs and web service calls and store that data in a staging arena, along with an ODS to make sure that we can level that playing field and foster relationships between systems. From there, we can feed that information into a marketing-focused data warehouse. Now we can consolidate information, consolidate business rules, have that single source version of the truth that represents your marketing organization, and how are these channels measured? How are these metrics measured? Via the OLAP engine, via cubes, and via a presentation layer done in Microsoft with Microsoft Office and SharePoint. Now, instead of trading back and forth a series of Excel spreadsheets, now, via this single consolidated source of information, our marketing analysts can do their analysis cross-channel, and our marketing managers and executives can see on the whole, asking the questions are much easier to be done. They can see how effective campaigns are. What is the quality of those campaigns? What's the trend been like? Where, if we have $1 more of marketing to spend, where do we need to spend it to get the most bang for that buck? And that's essentially what DMDF is intended to do. Help answer that question and help foster that conversation. So, want to throw another polling slide up there, and that's just to get a bit of feel for how your organization currently analyzes marketing data. Is it Microsoft Excel? So it's that scenario we kind of laid out that I've got all these different media channels that I use, and I have to pull down information and kind of consolidate all that Excel. Do you just use whatever those vendors give you, or you're unsure, or you just have a means and you're not really sure how it's done? I'll give you a moment for that while I sip some tea. Okay, great. Looks like 100% of you are using Excel. So it sounds like the prior slides that we went through are hitting a little bit close to home here. So with that in mind, we talked about DMDF from a conceptual standpoint. Now we want to talk about the real-world example of how we've implemented DMDF at one of our largest customers. Polaris Industries is a designer, engineer, and manufacturer of all-terrain vehicles, snowmobiles, and motorcycles for recreational and utility use. So for those of you in the north, you may be more familiar with the ATVs and snowmobiles. In Dallas, not so much the snowmobile side, but definitely the hunting vehicles, the ATVs, and the Victory motorcycles. Polaris has been pushing Victory motorcycles since 1998, as it kind of represents the first all-new American motorcycle since Harley, really, made from a major company in the past 60 years. Polaris has been trying to enhance that riding experience with a complete line of apparel, accessories, and parts, and really be that one-stop shopping source. And if you are interested in any of that, by all means, PolarisIndustries.com can answer those questions for you. So what was Polaris doing to really engage its customers and drive revenue for itself? You can see that Polaris's environment right now was marketing, getting customers to come to the website itself. So by using online and offline advertising and promotions and getting people to visualize that website with dynamic content, the relevant and targeted content was used to really attract consumers and really pull them down that consumer purchase funnel. As the consumers were working through the website, leads were generated by capturing the information for that consumer. What was their name, address, what are they interested in looking at, build a custom motorcycle, build a custom snowmobile, what are those things that you need to get them to ultimately register. And once they registered and hit this analytics set, it was a matter of tracking the behavior from that registration. What is it that they are looking at? Now that we have that cookie, what are they looking at? What are they doing? What's that score? What's that propensity to buy? What's the lifetime value of that customer? And once they finally get to the decision point, the conversion point that I want to make that decision, how do we capture that information and get them into a dealer? So is this type of very soft funnel of trying to gauge who are our suspects and who are our prospects, but in the end it was lost if somebody didn't actually register. So you had activity happening on your website, but not really sure how to capture that visitor and that information, how to gauge what's that behavior that's driving. So if we need to drive dynamic content on our website, what works? How do we know what works? How do we drive that person to register, to ask for more information, to build a custom bike, to build a custom vehicle so that they can go to a dealer and purchase? What they really wanted was something to fit within their overall enterprise BI architecture they had worked with us to build. That BI architecture and that BI strategy was really meant to drive 6 different points. There was governance, so they had this common corporate strategy for data storage, presentation, which might sound familiar to a lot of you. So from a governance standpoint, the solution for information capture and consumption should adhere to that delivery. From an agility standpoint, they had to be quicker to get stuff out there. They had to deliver BI. They had to deliver information to their constituencies so that those dealers and those marketers in those regions could do a better job of driving the Polaris name. The process had to be consistent, had to be timely, had to be transparent, had to follow those standards. People had to be self-sufficient, and people had to be able to do self-service. Ultimately, what they wanted was an enterprise BI solution that solved, if we kind of go back here, that let them take all the analytics from their website and gauge those custom, user behavior metrics and provide them within a BI context. So the architecture looks something like this. We had all these source systems. And if you remember from one of the prior slides, you have the internal systems like Microsoft CRM and Mapix. You had external systems like WebTrends and ExactTarget. So we need to grab all the information out of these external systems, bring them into an internal staging and mapping tables to foster those relationships, push them through into a marketing data mart with the star schemas, model that with an analysis services cube and perspectives to provide the business metrics and aggregates and trending capabilities, and then provide that in a presentation layer that, again, followed the idea of standards for visualizations, that was self-sufficient, and provided self-service. So the users had the power now, and they could build the reports they needed to get the insight they needed. So when we implemented DMDF, this was really the final picture that occurred. You had that same website experience going on that they had before, but now, as opposed to not being able to really capture anything until the analytics piece, now the entire experience was able to be captured because now they were able to gather information from the bought media they had out there, from all the marketing that they were doing. So the bought media, the email campaigns, the offline campaigns, they were able to capture those metrics to provide how are we reaching our suspects. From the on-site analytics and the dynamic content they were serving and the leads they were serving, how is it all working together? Ultimately, how does that drive that larger funnel? How do we get from knowing who our leads are? How do we get beyond that into the prospects and suspects? The DMDF, their marketing effectiveness dashboard, gave them all these channels in a single one-stop shopping piece in an agile way and a standardized way to group all these external sources into a single source and provide that in a single dashboard. And that's how we were able to provide, via DMDF, to Polaris, a solution to a problem that they thought was impossible to solve. So with that in mind, I want to hop into our demo. Before we get in there, I just want to cover a couple of the terms. We had several marketing people on here, so some of these terms are pretty commonplace, but I want to go ahead and take a little bit and just walk through campaigns, programs, coupons. These are really the things that your organization will be running to get people in the marketing campaigns themselves. Traffic, basically, who's coming to your website, how often are they coming, how long are they staying there, what are they viewing when they get there. Add an email type campaigns, so impressions, how many times is a single image or pixel showing up to a user, what's the click-through, so how many times are somebody clicking on that image when it shows up to get to your website. The bounce rate, of course, would be the quality of, bounce rate and stick rate being the quality of that visit. Bounce rates are basically, I came to the website, left as quickly as I could. Low would be, I came to the website and I stayed. Abandonment, if you are a retailer who allows people to buy online via shopping carts. Abandonment being, I build a shopping cart and leave without purchase. Visitors, unique and repeat. Obviously, unique visitors being individuals that are visiting the website for the first time. Repeat customers being folks who visit the website repeatedly. Leads and opportunities, influence and conversion, obviously being people coming to the website and what's the influence is what's going to entice them to buy, and the conversion would be the actual purchase or request for information or drive to purchase. Marketing costs and return on marketing investment, of course. Marketing costs being what we spend on the marketing campaigns themselves. Return being how much revenue do those drive. So with that in mind, I'm going to jump into the demo. Before I do that, I want to see a question here. The question says, you have a strategy or solution that integrates social media? So that's a good question. There is a solution right now that tracks social media today. Right now you can set up a site analytics piece to gauge the entry pages that are coming from social media platforms. So if I put ads on Facebook or I put ads on Twitter, I can gauge based on tagging which site those come in on. So I can gauge how many users are hitting my website from different social media platforms. The other kind of derivative of social media would be the social media interaction itself. So let's take Facebook, for example. I set up a Facebook page for my company, and I need people to become fans. To entice people to become fans, I may offer promotions and campaigns that target those that become fans on Facebook of my company's Facebook page. That interaction is currently in development. So the next release of DMDF will have a social media channel capability in it that would allow you to both gauge the I have ads on Facebook, but also how does my fandom on Facebook work? How do my Twitter followers, how does that affect the revenue that I'm driving to get a SMO or SEO organization helping me out? What's the return on that marketing investment? So it's a very good question. So let's get into the demo, shall we? So you should be able to see our screen now. You should see a sample marketing dashboard. If you are having some scroll bar issues, as Marcy had alluded to earlier, you can hit F5 on your keyboard to get to a full screen view. You should see an executive scorecard on the left with some pie charts and some other Right out of the gate, we can see this is a sample dashboard that has integrated sales figures from online stores, website activity representative of on-site analytics, so page views, visits, page per visit, bounce rate, unique visitors, pages per visitor, banner ad activity, so really bought media, marketing effectiveness, what are the impressions, what are the click-throughs, page views, how many unique visitors is that driving, and ultimately how does that relate to order count. So in essence, a trended funnel. We can see how some of the paid searches and organic searches are playing out. So what are the search terms that people are using across different engines to get to my website? We can see email activity and say in the same light, what are the impressions, what are the pages, what are the click views. So right now I can see that I'm consolidating information from all these separate, disparate sources of information into a single dashboard that's available for me to start analyzing. I can filter the entire dashboard by different type of campaigns, so inorganic campaigns, organic campaigns. I can choose different time series analysis, so this is purely dependent on what your organization will be interested in seeing. In this case, I could filter the entire board by the last 6 months, last 12 months, last 18 months, or the last 3 months. I could set this up to be daily, weekly, monthly, however that works on your fiscal. So if I'm looking at different views, I can bring up the marketing effectiveness. So we said this basically acted as a trended funnel. So traditionally, when you're thinking about a funnel view, you see literally a funnel graph, and it kind of filters down. But as we talked about, it's a little bit more difficult to do with digital channels because you have so many different channels feeding that same information. What this stacked bar chart does is provide that same funnel experience, only now it provides those metrics in a better-to-see way. So immediately out of the gate, I can see that in July, and assuming prior, I wasn't really spending a lot on money, and I can quickly add a cost figure here. So I can say total cost, and I can add that as an element, and I can see how much was I paying. I can see that back in July I wasn't really paying much, but in August through December, really through June, I started spending more in my digital space. Excuse me. You can see that I really started spending more in the last quarter of 2009, and that ultimately gained more impressions, more page views, more clicks, more unique visitors, and I could start gauging the lift. I started spending less at the beginning of the year, however my page views didn't go down. So if we take that out, let's go ahead and remove total cost and get back to kind of the funnel as a whole, now you can see that wasn't spending, wasn't getting a lot of impression, wasn't getting a lot of page views in July, started spending more, started getting more impressions and page views, and when I stopped spending, those page views stayed up. So again, we're starting to measure what was previously thought to be hard to measure, metrics like lift. And let's say we want to get an idea for bounce rate to get a feel for the quality of visits. So we can add bounce rate on here. Bounce rate is a percentage, so maybe that's a little bit hard to see. So we can quickly hit the line chart. And now the Microsoft tool, so this is part of where Performance Point comes into play. We saw how Performance Point allowed us to quickly see a dashboard and allow dashboard level filters. But now in the self-service arena, being able to do the analysis you want to do, Performance Point is intuitive enough to know what measures are being analyzed on screen, and it can quickly say, okay, bounce rate is a percentage, all these others are whole numbers, let's create a second axis, show the line. And inherently now I'm starting to see that, oh, there was a quality factor here in the sense that when I was in July, when I wasn't spending a lot of money to drive people to my website, the bounce rate was extremely high. So I wasn't getting quality visits, only 57%. So those people that were coming, bouncing out pretty quickly. As I started spending money, as I started marketing to people to drive them to my website, the quality of visit also improved. A bounce rate that goes down is a better quality of visit. So we know that impressions went up, we know page views went up, and we spent a lot of money in Q4 of 09. Here's that lift factor. I stopped, I didn't spend as much money in the beginning of 2010, but people had known and learned about my website. People were coming to my website. Page views are up, and the bounce rate was at a historic low for me, so I could start gauging the quality. Now, in the self-service arena, let's say I'm not really a graph and chart person. Maybe I'm just a grid person. So what Performance Point allows me to do is quickly change the views using this toolbar up here. I can see things in a graph, chart, stacked bar, 100% stacked bar, line charts, pie charts, you name it. I can filter rows. I can drill up. I can drill down. So let's drill up to the different quarters. We know that quarter 4 was kind of where we spent the most money. So let's restrict this to Q4. And we can see that, let's drill back down into October, November, December. And, we can see that the order count was best in December. So within the same Performance Point tool set, I can open what's called the decomposition tree. This is something that's native to Microsoft that allows me to break down a single metric across different dimensions. So here it takes those 2,600 orders that I received in December via marketing, and it's immediately breaking them out by date. But let's say instead of date, I want to break these out by product. So I can break out the product categories. And I can see that the campaign I was running drove 1,800 accessories purchases, 1,500 bikes, about 1,000 clothing, and 150 components. I can break that out further just following the hierarchy that I've set up in my analysis services cube. Or if I didn't want to go down that hierarchy and I wanted to drill, say, to which campaigns themselves. So let's go to campaign category. There's no campaign at all. So this is an interesting piece of insight. It was no campaign at all that drove these purchases. So no campaign as a campaign sounds a little bit strange, but isn't that really just brand recognition? By the campaigns I ran prior to December, people knew that if they wanted to purchase bikes or bike accessories, they could come to my website. So 1,600 of these purchases were no campaign at all that were in essence driven by brand recognition. I drew 500 orders by the internet ads and bought media that I had. If I wanted to drill further into the types of internet and bought media campaigns I ran, I had promotions, I had sales, I had miscellaneous types, I had discount types. This is where we get into customizing the solution to fit your organization. We can break that out by geography. We can say which states actually made the most purchases. California, BC, England, the internet is of course global, so state and province may break a little bit in the international realm, but you can see that You can start getting a feel for the geography of where our customers are coming, where are they clicking from. And this is all one-stop shopping. I don't have to go to different tools. I don't have to open different reports. I don't have to visit different spreadsheets and ask the question and wait 2 days to get my answer. It's all right here. If I liked this cookie trail that I left myself, I can see the same for bikes by clicking on that. And it saves that same cookie trail, and I can see what are the categories that are driving bikes. Maybe I want to see internet ads broken out by that same type and geography. I want to see sale by that same geography. Here, sale type campaigns worked in England. Promotions worked in California. Who would have known? So I'm starting to get these insights right out of the gate by the figures that have been provided for me. So that's an easy way to show how all these different metrics from all these different systems are being put together in a ready self-service mechanism. As well, using Performance Point, I can introduce the idea of mapping and geography. So we saw via that decomposition tree that we could see kind of a breakout of where are sales by state, by name. Well, what if I could see that in a map? Well, Performance Point in tandem with SQL Server 2008 R2 has mapping capabilities out of the box. So I'm able to use the site analytics information that I'm getting via IP range, who's coming to my website, what's the quality of that visit. I can start gauging over the last 12 months, let's even make that the last 18 months. So you can see that it's going back, Performance Point is going back to the data set, rerunning all these reports across the last 18 months, and here it reinforces the fact that we really didn't spend a whole lot of money. In the earlier set of 2009, we started getting more digital, if you will, in later 2009, but we can see how that affected geography. So a good representation of this, excuse the scroll bars, you can see the bubbles represent visit quality, and the heat represents the quality of bounce rate. We can go a little bit deeper into the state of Washington. So if I clicked on Washington, what it's doing is Performance Point is going out to Bing Maps. It is retrieving the map of the state of Washington. And on the backside, SQL Server is applying all the data to show a heat map based on the zip code in the state of Washington as to who is visiting my website most. And I can see that in the zip code of 98826, that drove 5,500 visits over the last 18 months at a pretty quality and high bounce rate. So now, if I'm thinking about it from a marketing perspective, I know that if I want to do a targeted, offline campaign, there are people in the state of Washington in this zip code that perhaps I want to go after that are going to make purchases of my product. The same way I could look at that in the inverse and say, we're not getting a lot of heat in the Bay Area, in Seattle, in the SeaTac area. So maybe we need to do a little bit better job of targeted marketing and see what do we need to do to entice that area to buy. So inherently, I'm starting to get analysis from data from multiple sources in ways I've never seen it before immediately, as opposed to waiting for several different ways to produce these reports. Same way with email. I can click that and I can see there's the same email marketing campaign. Now I can see the impressions and page views by different specific targeted channels. So if I'm the analyst and I'm in charge of analyzing specific channels, I can still use the same set of data, the same framework to do the analysis I need to do to support the questions that I have to answer. I can get sales by campaign on the overall. How many of these campaign types are driving visits to my website, and how are those converting to sales? If I wanted to look at the bought media that I'm using, I can get a top 10 list of the creative images themselves as to which images have been utilized the most across the last 18 months, how many impressions have been out there, how many clicks did they drive, and ultimately how many conversions did those clicks move. And I can click on one of those and open a separate report that's going to show me the image that I'm interested in, the creative image itself, as well as a site-by-site breakdown of which publisher, which site, what location will this particular image served to users. So if I saw this on a website, excuse me, what campaign was it run under, what sites was it placed on, where were they placed on that site, and how many impressions was it used given my bought media set or that campaign I ran, how many clicks and how many conversions did it run. So I can add different things to get, the cost per impression, the cost per click, what's the click-through rate. The thing about this view is it's great for this type of traditional image-based analysis of I can see an image, I can see next, I can see previous, I can see first, I can see last. The Microsoft Pivot Viewer allows you to do an image-based analysis that drives correlation. So within the same set of data, the same set of information, the same consolidated single version of the truth, and SharePoint in the same interface, I now have the ability to start doing correlative analysis with the images themselves. So what I'm looking at here are zoomed out versions of every creative image I have ran across 2009 and 2010. So I can change the sort to look at it by quarter. So I can quite easily select quarter, and you can see that it breaks them out, Q1 through Q4. I can filter very easily to say, let's just look at 2009, and it will filter that information for me. I can look down at month, so I can filter this even further to break it out, and we can see kind of based on the dashboard that we looked at earlier, we know that Q4 of 2009 was where we had the most impressions, so it only makes sense that in 11 and 12 we had these creatives out in these campaigns. And instead of that, maybe we can see that which campaigns we're running. So we can see the creative images sorted by campaign. So the winter component sale had the most images out there. And maybe we want to see that campaign itself, and we'll select it. And you can see that it automatically filters by the winter component sale. So now I just see a scatter of images for the winter component sale. What this image analysis provides me right now is just a quick correlative view of different colors, different sizes that I ran. I can choose to zoom in on something. I can double-click it and immediately go down to the image itself, and I can see the metadata associated, what year, what month, what campaign was that image a part of, what site did it run on, where was it placed, what channel was it placed in. I can zoom back out. I can continue my analysis and say, okay, we're looking at that winter components campaign. Now let's sort this by placement. And I can view that back into a graph mode. And it's going to immediately show me my graph that a majority of my impressions were shown at the top of the pages that they were on. But let's filter by click-through range now. Let's see which images drove the most click-through. So let's only filter this 25,000 to 50,000 click range. So we can see that it was actually creatives on the bottom, not at the top, that drove the most click-throughs. And if I added the next level down, you can see that it's going to show that it's images on the bottom. Light-colored images from our winter campaign drove more click-throughs than the majority of impressions that we had. Because if we remove that filter, we can see what we kind of spent a lot of our time in was putting dark-colored images at the top of pages and in the middle left of pages. But when we filter by really what drove the most traffic, we can see that it was actually light-colored images on the bottom of the page. So by doing this type of image-based correlative analysis, I can start seeing insights into my marketing analytics that I've never been able to see before. And this might tell me the more behavioral aspects of human nature and browsing, that they're not, people may not be interested in ads they see at the top of a page, but after reading an article, they might see your ad and click on it. So now we know that I have another dollar to spend. My dashboard told me that it was internet marketing and bought media that drove the most traffic to my website and drove the most conversions. And when I look at bought media itself, I find that during certain campaigns, I noticed that light-colored images placed at the bottom of a website really drive the most click-throughs. So now I'm starting to get more smarter with my analysis and more effective on how to build campaigns that work. So that's a quick demo of what the Digital Marketing Dashboard Framework can do. And we're running a little tight on time, so let's get back into our deck here. Marcy? Okay. Okay, there we go. Okay, there we go. So, sorry about that little hiccup. So, the future of DMDF. Some upcoming enhancements in the next versions we have. Some greater integration with different systems. So, Microsoft Advertising, the Atlas platform, has a much more granular set of data that they can provide at the actual click level and the visit level. That can give us more data points and more information to aggregate. We talked about the social media integration from the question that was asked earlier. We're going to integrate with mobile channels, so not just people who visit websites via mobile phones and slates and iPads and tablets, but also, mobile apps. I place my ad on different mobile apps that people use, so maybe I'm putting an ad on Pandora. What is that ultimately leading to when it comes to purchases? Same thing with YouTube. If I have videos, you remember Reebok did the fantasy football videos, or does the fantasy football profile videos every year. How much traffic does that drive to Reebok.com? As well, we want to create more intuitive funnels that are more behavioral-centric, more correlative-centric, attribution models, so you can see. We talked about in the digital sense that it's very hard to gauge what is the path of the user, what's driving influence, what's driving conversion, what's the attribution of how many site clicks, how many banner ads, how many emails does it take to cause conversion. We're building models that allow you to drive attribution, as well as making the DMDF available via the cloud and lowering your TCO. So in summary, GNet's Digital Marketing Dashboard Framework really provides the foundation to build robust marketing and analytics for digital channels. The whole goal is to provide an accelerator to get you the marketing insights you need out of the gate without having to spend months and months in design and development. This is something that's tangible, ready to go in just a few weeks span of time to get stood up and running and getting you the insight you need. We say endless reporting capabilities because that self-service aspect, using Microsoft SharePoint, Microsoft Performance Point, Microsoft Power Pivot, Pivot Viewer, allows you, the information worker, use the marketing professional, to consume information the way you need it, the method you need it, and from the IT perspective, allows you to focus on governance, focus on standards, focus on security, focus on data quality and stewardship, as opposed to dealing with a reporting queue that's a mile high. And altogether, the framework reduces risk. It's built on a pre-developed industry-standard BI best practices. So the APIs that are automated, the ETL routines, the data mart itself, the cubes, the dashboards that come out of the box are all built with industry best practice. They are optimal, they are backed up, they are secured. So in speaking about the BI platforms, I wanted one last polling slide before we open up for questions, just to get a feel for what your organization uses as an analytics platform. You use Microsoft BI. Excel is a part of that. Are you Cognos, Oracle, SAP, Crystal, other? What are you using in-house right now? We'll give a quick couple seconds for that. Okay, great. Couple of links. So this deck is not available for download right now. We will have this available for you. The presentation material is available for you on our website at gnetgroup.com, where you can copy these links. So you can go read the Polaris success story on our website. You can visit our blog, gnetgroup.wordpress.com. You can go to the Microsoft site, learn more about the BI platform, the SharePoint platform, and their online services platform. So at this time, I want to go ahead and open up the floor for any questions we have so I can answer them. If you don't have any right now that come to mind, you just kind of want to sit for a little bit and think, you can definitely reach us via email. Again, here's my email address. You can reach me on Twitter. You can reach the entire GNet team via Twitter as well. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and pop open the Q&A form here and see what we've got.
Ladies and gentlemen, just let me jump in here and remind you that if you have any questions for Anand, just click the Q&A tab in the upper left toolbar in the live meeting interface, and that will open a window where you can type in your question.
Okay, seems we've got a couple here. Let me open this box as well. Okay, so saw me mentioning kind of web trends and exact target. What if we don't use those? What if we use Omniture, use Google Analytics? That's okay. We can integrate with those as well. This tool was built for Polaris systems, but we have other clients that do use Omniture, that do use Google Analytics, that do use Dart. The source system, it merely requires the API. The metadata would require the mapping to the data model. So that's easy. Have another question. Excuse me. Can this integrate with my financial back-end systems? So if you remember the architecture slide we saw earlier that shows internal systems, CRM, financials, online sales, Aloha if you're a point-of-sale shop and you want to mix online sales with retail sales, all of that is capable and possible. The data model is meant to facilitate a full end-to-end funnel to show the sales conversion itself. So it can definitely integrate with the financial back-end system as well as graft itself into and onto an existing data mart or data warehouse. So it can integrate with both of those. So another social media question. Again, yes, we are working both in the standpoint of ads being served via social media, but also social media as a platform and channel itself. We are working on that integration. Hosting and the cloud. Currently, GNet has a data center, and we can host this solution for you. So if you have, strapped for IT resources, or don't have the server capacity, or don't have the budget, need to want to use the solution, but don't have the resources to implement it, we can host the solution for you and set up a proper server for you to use and licenses and turn it into a monthly cost. Are the reports and dashboards out of the box, or are they custom built? Those dashboards that we showed in the demo are available out of the box, but part of our configuration phase for implementing DMDF is to work with you to customize those dashboards and metrics and scorecards to best fit the objectives that your organization has and the metrics you're following and capturing and the visualizations you need to have. So those are available out of the box as samples, but it's fully intended to be customized for your organization. Okay, that seems to be all the questions I can see in the queue. So as we said before, you can go to our website, gnetgroup.com. The presentation materials and video will be available for you. You can follow us on our blog, see different things that we are working on. We put tips up there, tricks for different Microsoft tools, different industry news that's coming out. Follow us on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter. Keep up to date that way and interact with us that way. Same with LinkedIn and Facebook. Feel free to shoot any emails you have or any questions you have. Again, my email address is anand.pandya@gnetgroup.com. We'd love to hear from you and answer any questions you have. I think that would be all the questions. So we want to thank everybody once again for attending our webcast today. Appreciate you taking an hour out of the day, and we're really looking forward to hearing from you in the near future. So thank you again for coming. We appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the audio portion of today's GNet Group presentation. Thanks again for coming. You may now disconnect from the audio portion of the presentation.